Steve Forbes is with me right now. Steve, we keep repeating these votes, getting the same kind of sense that he's a dollar short here. I know much is made, Steve, of the fact that, and McCarthy and his forces say this, that look at us, we had 90% of the caucus, and I get that, but it's all about 218, right? I distinctly remember, showing my age here, you're much younger, of course, when Gerald Ford's forces in 1976 said we got more votes than Ronald Reagan challenging us for the nomination. But going into the convention, I think in Kansas City at the time, he didn't have the nominee. He didn't have the final delegate number yet. So momentum is one thing, but closing the deal means getting to that number. He's not getting to that 218, will he?
It's going to be tough. And the amazing thing is, as you referenced, they challenged McCarthy a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
McCarthy beat it back 186-31. Now, in a normal world, you lick your wounds and do what the left of the Democrat Party does, which is focus on policy. You may not have the positions, but you influence.
We don't like it, but rally around this guy. Right?
Yeah. And stop playing like 6-year-olds who get in a pout when they don't get
but
the way
they must really dislike him.
Well,
what is the issue here?
It's spite, and also all this publicity.
Yeah.
These people are non-entities, most of them. Now they're getting all this publicity, so they're can't give it up, and they don't realize.
Is there someone emerging, Steve, who could do that? The Paul Ryan role after Boehner. Is there someone who emerges
the only
here?
one who could possibly do it, and he won't do it now for a variety of good reasons, is Steve Scalise.
Yeah.
But this crowd may try to.
I wonder with this crowd whether he would do.
Well, so they don't even know. They can't even focus on an alternative candidate. So what do you hope to accomplish other than embarrass? One of the first things they're going to do is scale back these 87,000 new IRS agents. Well, that's going by the boards. Opening up federal lands for energy. We do have energy needs. Hopefully we'll have a mild winter, but we do have long-term energy needs. They can't focus on that. So what do they hope to achieve? McCarthy, in terms of policy, the party's pretty much united. So what are they trying to do? It's just personal spite and publicity seeking and bringing out the real ugly side of American politics.
Does he
today.
represent something more, though? And again, among a relatively small pool of people, to your point, but that an anathema to them, or that he's business as usual. And there's always this crowd, you always say the Rhino, Republican in name only. But is that what's going on here? And
they may have personal spite, but that's get used to it. In an organization, you have personal differences, but you try to focus on the big test.
I'm Italian, so don't tell me about spite.
But
what did you make of the Donald Trump then influence there? He tells them essentially rally around this guy, and they don't.
Well, they're into their own cocoon right now.
Yeah.
And so they've got their little bubble there, and they don't realize the more they do this, the more damage they do to the alleged causes they say they believe in.
Well, if they're not going to follow advice, orders, whatever you want, from Donald Trump,
by the way,
and they're not getting it from the mainstream, what's going on?
Well, they should also realize Republicans in the House have a habit of getting rid of leaders they don't like. They pushed out Newt Gingrich. They pushed out John Boehner. So if they don't like somebody, they have a past precedent to get rid of them. So McCarthy raised $250 million. You may not like the guy, but you work with him, and if he doesn't perform, then you get rid of him. And so you may not like a leader of may not like Aaron Judge. Everyone does, but if he's hitting 262 home runs, you work with him.
Yeah.
And so what they got to do is realize it's not just about them and their little petty things. They got a bigger thing, the United States of America.
All right. As you're wrapping up there, this vote is wrapping up, this fourth vote, and it's a no-go for Kevin McCarthy. Now, the indications are we're going to have a fifth vote. Keep doing this. Again and again and again, and we'll see where it goes. But for Kevin McCarthy, he's not exactly coming up aces here. So, Steve, then the issue becomes, I know when parties turn on their own, Britain, it's common. We've seen it with their own prime ministers. My God, they kicked Churchill out, right? So we don't see it quite as much here, but we're beginning to here. I'm just wondering whether there's something more to this in 2024 signals.
Well, I think what it underscores is, and I think that's one reason why Donald Trump endorsed McCarthy, is the longer this goes on, the better Governor DeSantis looks. He took a fractious party in Florida, made it the dominant party, effectively governed
Won in
the
a
state,
landslide.
Won by 20 points, 19, 20 points.
Right.
So there's strength. There's the person who gets things done. And then you have this clown party in the House, and people wonder, by golly, we need a governor. We need somebody who's delivered, has a record of delivering.
But can even a popular governor, overwhelmingly reelected, should he choose to run for president? I mean, this could be like, corralling kittens here, right? I mean, it could be difficult.
Well, let's look to the future and do all these what ifs that won't matter at the end of the day. But let's say DeSantis runs. DeSantis wins decisively because he's young and people want a new direction, decisive direction. And so he'll have more of a majority in the House. And you don't go against a nationally elected president. Nobody knows who, outside of politics, who Kevin McCarthy is. Most people are just only vaguely aware of him. Presidential candidate is very different. If a presidential candidate gets a mandate, like DeSantis did as governor of Florida, that's very hard to buck. And you'll have a real unanimity in the party, in the House and elsewhere, who also know their success depends on the president's success. They'll punish, like Nancy Pelosi, whatever you think of her, by golly, she not only raised the money like McCarthy did, but everyone knew you crossed her and you will pay a price.
And nothing is going to a vote unless she had the vote. So I'm thinking it works the other way too, Steve, right? In 1994, when Republicans stomped in the House with that big win, they couldn't carry it through 2 years later, and Bill Clinton was reelected. How does this go? How long do these things last? We're obsessed with it right now. Vote, another vote, another vote. It'll pass. I mean, and they'll settle on someone. I don't know who it is. But what would happen if it were deficits and that he benefits because Republicans are divided? I mean, you've had, some Republican congressmen saying he would be a better alternative to Kevin McCarthy.
Well, if old Steny Hoyer, who was number 2 under Nancy Pelosi, also in his 80s, I think, or late 70s. I don't think that's old anymore, but some people
No, I don't either. And 80s is the new 78,
No, 21.
Right.
But if somebody like that was around, you'd find some Republicans saying, hey, he's a moderate. We know we can deal with him. He's not a crazy guy. We got to stop this. And that's the danger, is they could pick somebody and unite it behind another candidate. And that's what these well, I'm trying to be nice. It's a family station here.
It is here, right?
Realize, stop being selfish and put the party and the country ahead of your own publicity seeking. Just once.
Real quick thoughts on the markets through all of this. We're down from our highs here, but we're holding our own. Some have this sort of take, obviously we want to do better after the horrific year we had last year. I get that. But others are just saying, dysfunction in Washington is nothing new to us. And if nothing gets done, we're fine with that, even if it means, dysfunction among Republicans. I'm not always sure that's the case when Republicans want to do some of the things that the markets want to see done. But your thoughts?
Yes, to have a gridlock, positive gridlock, where you can roll back some crazy things like on the regulatory side or spending side that the Democrats are doing, you have to have a functioning party. We don't have a functioning party in the House. And so, it's the worst of all worlds. You have dysfunction, which means on the regulatory side, this administration can continue to do what it's doing, and there's no effective roadblock. And the authority that the Republicans would have had if they united, moved forward, never had this debacle here, their authority is now undermined to block some of that. Oh, you're inefficient. You're upsetting the government. Well, what do you think you guys were doing? You can't even swear in a new Congress for crying out loud. Constitution says January 3rd. We're past January 3rd, boys and girls.
Okay, you got to calm down, first of all. Kidding. Let me ask you, I mean, you really see something here, and maybe we're learning it post-election, right? That 10-vote gap in the House. Only 10 more Republicans than Democrats. If he had a 20, that is Kevin McCarthy, a 20-vote cushion, could he have pulled this off? I guess it depends on who those other extra 10 would be.
I think the answer is yes. Because the obstructionists didn't know that they could get up to 19 or 20. They knew they had 5 or 6. And so if McCarthy had a 20-vote lead after McCarthy smashing their alternative for the leadership, this would not have come to pass. And but remember, even though it's a small majority, Pelosi made it effective.
Yeah, you're right. With virtually nothing, and to go for. I mean, they pulled out some big legislation. Whether you're a fan of that legislation or not, it was, I think, a record amount of spending.